One of the things that I think both you and I have dealt with, and that we see a lot of people who deal with chronic illness, is a component of stress that we often go through either before getting chronically ill or during our chronic illness. And that's like part of something I don't think enough people talk about when they're trying to heal from a chronic illness or even when they get diagnosed. There's this like level of like, you have Lyme disease or you got long COVID or you got, you have whatever, mold exposure. But people don't really talk about the underlying issue, which is chronic prolonged stress. We see it with people in our class, and something that we have dealt with ourselves. And so I think it's important that we talk about this on this video.
Yeah, I think that stress is the big unsaid monster,
Yeah,
unspoken monster in all of this. And I know for both of us,
yeah,
stress played a large role in why we both got sick and then,
yeah,
you relapsed like you talk about in your book.
yeah, yeah,
And I know for me, I don't think that I would have gotten as sick as I did with Lyme disease if I
yeah,
wasn't under so much stress. And for me, I was 26. I'm 44 now, about to turn 45. And I've had chronic Lyme for 17, 18 years. I don't know.
yeah,
Math isn't mathing right now.
yeah,
But when I got sick, I'd taken a job, my dream job in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was 26.
yeah,
Accepted a senior engineer position for network security firm. I was a network engineer, but never did network security. And they kind of intersect, but they're
yeah.
not the same thing. And I made a huge mistake. I left a bank completely open and vulnerable overnight
Yeah. I remember
to
this story.
yeah, it was a crazy thing. So stress happened with that, and then in the little bit of time I was there, I had three jobs because I was trying to find a place where I'd be happy.
Yeah,
My wife and son were living up in DC. I was trying to sell a house up there, buy a house down there, and I'd taken a job as an overnight engineer for a contract in China and stuff like that. And stress started to compile. I was eating like
hmm,
crap. I was drinking every now and then, or every now and then, it was like every day after work, I'd have like two or three beers.
yeah,
And my body was just under immense stress. Now, prior to that, like I'd gotten a tick bite and stuff like that, got an out of season flu and felt
yeah,
completely
yeah,
fine after 2 weeks. And then just all of a sudden in my office one day, bam, I
yeah,
thought I was dying. I had that event X, and it turned out to be a panic attack that in turn elevated all my
yeah,
symptoms, and the nervous system dysregulation started there. But I feel like during that time, and I was fighting with my spouse, and we were
yeah,
fighting about money and rush to work and just all these different things, and I wasn't taking care of my body. Everything collapsed. My nervous system became
yeah,
dysregulated, and that's where the Lyme really got a foothold into my life. And from there, as we all know, when we get chronically sick, it's not like the stress stops. The
yeah. It
stress,
actually gets worse.
yeah, I feel like there we feel it physically
Yeah.
right here, all over. We carry it,
Um,
and now we're chronically sick. We're stressed because now we're looking for answers. Doctors have bounced us
mhm.
around. We're in and out of the hospital, and that's really where we begin to really discover dysregulation steps in, and is really what makes the chronic illness, whether it's Lyme, fibromyalgia, ME, CFS, all
Yeah.
these things so much worse because we don't feel normal. I'm not sure what your experience was with stress, and that's
Yeah,
just
no,
the intro. It's played a long role in my
yeah,
18 years.
yeah. We'll
Get into
dive into it pretty in depth in this conversation. But I had a very similar thing. At the time, when I first got sick with Lyme. I was in college, and everyone thinks college is fun and all that sort of stuff. But I was, lifestyle issues. I was barely sleeping. Because I was just in that cycle of party and then go to class. So I remember there were times where I'd be like up till like 3, 4 in the morning and then wake up, drinking and all this sort of stuff, and then go to an 8 o'clock class, like still drunk. And then I had relationship stress. And at the time I was going into my senior year of college. So it was like all the stress around like, what am I going to do with my life? All that. And similar to you, I got bit by a tick and just all of it kind of compiled. And I just remember like, man, when I got sick, then the stress even got worse because now it's like, what's wrong with me? Like I shouldn't feel this way. And now like you're going from doctor to doctor to doctor, and the stress even compiles even more, and you feel like straight up crap. And I think I think something that we've seen, obviously, now that we do what we do, everyone we talk to has a similar story. It's like, yeah, they get bit by a tick, or yes, it's they get COVID, or yes, they have, event X, whatever it is. Sometimes it's like people, with CFS, ME, they might get like, Epstein Barr, like, mono or something like that. And then it turns into something, or there might be another sort of thing that happens. But everyone we talk to has this underlying level of stress for typically many months, if not years, like going back. Maybe they had a stressful life prior to getting sick. Maybe it was, they were in an unhealthy, toxic relationship. Maybe there was a job that was, just so stressful and overwhelming or whatever. And I think that's something that's it's not talked about enough. Um, and it's one of the things now looking back, we all think about, oh, I have a Lyme flare, I have a, my fibro flare or whatever, like these catch-all diagnoses and terms. But like realistically, when you break it down, it comes from stress. When the body
Absolutely.
is out of that state of stress and you're in more of that regulated state, the body then kind of calms down. And this is, we were talking about this earlier, you know um I don't look at like my chronic illness now as like, oh, I'm having a Lyme flare, or anything like that. I look at it like, am I under more stress right now? Because typically I know I notice a correlation, like, as we're
Right.
still healing and as all that sort of stuff. If I'm under more stress, I notice more physical, mental symptoms, all of that stuff. And then when I alleviate the stress through obviously the mind body practices, but also, some of the other things that are needed, like, acceptance and, letting go, and also, making changes, you know,
Right.
does do things actually get better? So yeah, that's kind of my story, and we'll dive into it because I obviously relapsed, but I want to, before we go into that, I kind of want to talk about just different types of stress that can kind of happen with all of us, because I think people think, oh, it's just stress, like but like there's so many different things that kind of can lead to stress. So I think it's might be helpful if we dive into that.
Yeah, and I think for you guys that are listening and watching, I'd encourage you to stay to the end. We're going to talk about things that you can do to
Yeah,
help manage the stress
yeah, exactly.
your journey all along. And, being true and honest and authentic. And that's one of the things that Joe and I are very truthful about on this journey.
Yeah,
We tell people that the healing journey is one of the most difficult things that you'll ever
yeah,
go on. Stress is a very real thing, whether it's, stress from an illness, stress from a relationship, financial stress, job stress. Like stress is unavoidable. It's how we respond to stress that is
yeah,
ultimately going to dictate our healing
yeah,
journey. It doesn't matter what medication you're doing, what treatment you're doing. If you're sitting there and cortisol and adrenaline are constantly
yeah,
pumping through your bloodstream,
yeah,
you're never going to feel well. You're never going to get well. Your immune system's never going to do what it was designed to do. And ultimately, you're just not going to have a feeling of well-being. So ironically, and Joe and I tend to have these, and we've been on our healing journey now for about 2 years,
yeah,
and we've made substantial progress doing exactly, the mind body methods and just nervous system regulation. We hate the term neuroplasticity just because it's become a catchphrase that everybody kind of uses, but alleviating and managing stress has been one of the most important parts of it. And what I've had to realize is, as both Joe and I woke up this morning, and we're stressed because we're in that in between stage where we're slowly transitioning and getting better, but not fully better to the point like, hey, let's go, neck
yeah,
deep, pursue full-time careers and stuff like that. But to a point where we're making progress, and there are some days where we're functional and we can do some things. And mind you, guys, that came from being completely bed sick. So that's
yeah, yeah,
that's the important part to remember. But one of the biggest healing things that I've realized is how I deal with stress. Guys, there is no person, unless you go live in a hut in the middle of the woods, that you're going to
yeah,
stress. And then even still, there's going to be things you're going to be lonely, and that's going to stress you out. So it's unavoidable, guys.
yeah,
And what I've realized, and I live by this, and it's kind of like part of AA and stuff like that. And we learn to change the things that we are capable of changing, that we
yeah,
are knowledgeable, that we're able to change. and the things that we can't change, we have to radically accept.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you're in a bad marriage or and you can't leave the situation, or you're in a bad relationship and you're stuck for the time being, begin to make a plan to exit that if that's what you
Yeah.
need to do for your health. But realize that it's not going to happen tomorrow, and you have to accept it till then and not allow it to trigger you, because
Yeah.
you can't blame the other person for triggering you. You're responsible for your emotions and how you handle stress, because that stress is ultimately going to make you feel worse. And then, obviously with financial stress, if you get a bunch of bills that pile up that day in the mail, guess what? You can't magically wish money
Yeah.
into your hands. Believe me and Joe have tried. But, you've got to accept it for what it is. You need to take some time to calm your nervous system, and then begin to have a plan to get out
Yeah.
of it slowly but surely. And it's difficult for people like, oh, these idiots don't know. Like, my
Yeah.
case is just the worst. Like Joe and I have been through it. When
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
talk about stress, generally on the other side of this door, one's in college now, but there's four kids that honestly want my attention. Joe and I run the Healing Dudes program, where we've got people that are hitting us up all the time that are in our class, and there are monstrous amounts of stress that Joe goes through, that I go through.
Mhm.
And part of healing is learning how to manage those stressors. And if you
Yeah.
can't learn how to manage and accept the things you cannot immediately change, you
Yeah.
will never get better. You will
Yeah.
never get better.
Yeah.
You look like you had something to say, Joe.
Yeah, because you had talked about a couple things there. One, I think people don't realize what the mechanism happens with stress. We just think stress, oh, it's just stress. There's nothing to it, but there's actual like a biochemical response in the body. And you had mentioned it, like cortisol and adrenaline and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's important to talk about why this is really the issue. When stress comes and we get kind of thrown into, we have a reaction to stress. Like we can't stop necessarily the reaction when something happens, like say a loved one dies, or you lose a
Right.
job, or you get broken up with. You can't, like, you're going to have a stress response. Like there's going to be cortisol and adrenaline. It's, you had said, kind of how you handle it, because we can move through it and out of it, or we can stay in it. And that's where the problem is, because what happens with stress is when we get thrown into that dysregulated state, the fight or flight state, the more keyed up state, we all feel it. It's tightness in the chest. It's like, tense muscles, like, feel like you want to, yell at someone, go whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's a natural reaction to your body spiking in cortisol, adrenaline, and all these things. And it's fine for a short period of time. But when it stays like that, this is where all of that stuff is inflammatory. It weakens the immune system. Like, this is not just me making shit up either. This is like, you can read all about this. This
Science.
does. Yeah, it's science. Like, you can read all this stuff on, what stress does and what cortisol really does, prolonged cortisol really does. It basically weakens your immune system. It turns on inflammatory markers in your body. It then shuts down your digestion. So now you're not, digesting or detoxing properly, because your body's in that state. It's in that like self-preserve fight or flight state, where it's like ready to take action. You know what I mean? So that's where the prolonged stress is an issue. And I think what we talk about is managing that, because that's the key and the important thing. When you're in that, it can be really, really detrimental to your body over time. So that's, I think it was important to expand on that
Yeah.
as we, yeah, as we kind of go into this. um,
Yeah.
and there was another thing that you had kind of brought up there. um, there's so many different types of stresses, so we're not going to go completely into that, but if you're dealing with stress, you kind of know it, right? um, there are things that I think are really, really key when we're dealing with it, and you brought up a couple things. I read this, I forget where I saw it. I read it, or I saw something somewhere, and it really, handling stress is kind of simple when you break it down like this. It's like, if you have a stressful event, there are really three things that you can do, or prolonged stress in your life. There's really three things that you can do, and you may need to do all three of them, or you may need to choose one appropriate. And it was, change it, make a plan to change it, or accept it. You kind of touched on those, but I think that that was like the thing that hit me is like, all right, you're in this stressful period of whatever. Can you change it? Right now? No. Okay. Well, then this is where acceptance lies in. Can you make a plan to change it? All right, well, okay, maybe you can. Like, if you're
Right.
in a unhealthy relationship or you're in a job that really doesn't suit you or something like that, you can start to make a plan to change it. And that'll actually alleviate some of the stress because now you have a plan of action. And so it's not just like I feel stuck. Um, and then the acceptance piece is probably the hardest thing because no one
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely, dude.
yeah.
Yeah, we could
And
really
this
spend a whole
yeah,
topic on acceptance.
Yeah, this is a whole topic. I mean, we talk about this all the time in our class and even on in our posts and stuff like this because acceptance is one of those words that people don't really quite I don't think they quite understand. Everyone thinks, "Oh, I've got to accept this. I'm in this situation where I'm chronically ill. I've got to just deal with this for the rest of my life. I've got to accept being sick or I've got to accept this stress." It's like, "No, no, no. That's not how it works."
Yeah.
Acceptance is taking that pressure off of yourself and that ease off of yourself that you cannot change this in the moment, and that it doesn't mean don't take action. It means remove it from your constant thought and spiral of thinking about,
Yeah.
what if this, what if that, like that's really where stress comes from anyway. It's mostly our thoughts. There's initial
We
yeah,
create so much of it. And I
yeah,
think, when we say accept, temporarily accept your illness or accept the things you're saying, it's a temporary thing. We're not saying, hey, look, I've accepted this as my death sentence.
yep,
No longer. No, you have to accept it. And this comes with a large part of being present.
yep,
And so
yeah,
much stress is alleviated. And Joe, I'm talking to me and you as we go through this
yeah,
morning,
yeah, yeah, exactly,
constantly worrying about all these things in the
yeah,
future. So much stress is removed. And hear me, guys, when we stop getting into the future and we stop living in the past,
yeah,
we think about all the things that have happened to us and how much trauma we've gone through, and that just creates stress. And then we think into the future about all these things that could happen, and we have these catastrophic situations in our mind and worst case scenarios that generally never happen. But we fail to be present.
yep,
We fail to surrender because guess what? In the present, a lot
everything,
of those, I can accept the present. Like
yep.
day by day, I can begin it. But if you got to tell me that I have to accept a long future, like that's not
Yeah,
realistic. And we don't want people to do that. And we don't want you to live in the future. I think that's ridiculous. And we don't want you to live in the past. But
yep,
when we stay present, and sometimes it's an accepting a moment by moment thing. And we understand that there's a lot of people that are really chronically sick. And when I say Joe and I have come a long way, for you guys that know our stories, we have. But when we talked this morning, I told Joe, dude, it felt like I stuck my tongue in an electric socket and it wouldn't come out. Like that's how bad physically I
yep,
felt. And now here we are, we're sitting on here talking to you guys and being vulnerable. I got up, I did the work, I accepted that there was no amount of overthinking or searching for a solution that's going to make my symptoms go away. So
yep,
I'm going to temporarily accept these. I'm not going to get stressed. We're freaking out about money and all these different things. I can't change that in the moment, but I
yep,
can accept it. We can go into our acceptance, and then we can begin, as we're doing now, making these videos, trying to slowly plan ways to climb out of whatever hole we're in.
yep,
And that's it. When we put urgency on things, when we try to
mm,
rush things, when we're in the future, that is where, bro, I'm talking to us, right? That
yeah,
is where the stress
yeah,
compounds. But here's
yep,
the thing: is at least in my life, and it's been a very difficult existence for much of my life, and I think Joe
yeah,
can relate.
yeah, yeah,
But
same,
what I've realized in the past 2 years is by accepting what I can't change and no longer allowing it to sit here in the middle of my chest where you
yep,
feel it and in my
yeah,
shoulders and in my body and allowing it to flare, I accept it. I try to
mhm,
shift towards being grateful for
mhm,
things and really feeling that gratitude and focusing on the heart brain coherence
yeah,
and really believing that healing is possible instead of being in the future and saying, well, what if I have this symptom and now I need to find another doctor and
yeah,
now I
exactly,
need to find a neurologist and Joe, I got to go get an MRI because these symptoms.
yep,
And guess what? I surrendered. I calmed my nervous system. And here's the thing, guys: when you're stressed, There is no way to calm your nervous. It is impossible. It is the exact opposite. So I let go. And I was like, all right, I'm going to focus. I sat down, I prayed, I read, I meditated, and I believed that everything will work out for good.
This too
And
shall pass.
this
Yeah.
too shall pass.
Yeah.
Uh, we say this too shall pass, and it is what it is till it isn't. And
Yeah.
it's not always going to be that bad, but whatever circumstance you're in, whether it's relationship, marital stress, job stress, money stress, health stress, it's all stress. It all has the same effect on the body,
Yeah.
and you ultimately control how sick you're going to let it make you. And a
Yeah.
lot of you guys aren't going to like that, but a lot of how severe your illness is how deep you're going into your stress. Oh, I can't buy these supplements this month, or the doctor doesn't have it figured out, or my spouse isn't supportive, or
Yeah.
I don't have anybody in my life that loves me, or doom 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 doom. You're
Focusing on
punching
all
yourself
the
in the face.
yeah.
You're looking in the mirror trying to
Yeah.
heal, and you're literally doing this right here. You got
Yeah.
to stop. You have to be present. You have to accept your current situation. And I'm not saying that you just accept it and it magically changes. This
No.
is why we have this. And if
We
you're
take
interested,
action.
do not
Yeah.
plug. Joe and I write in this every single day. It's do the work journal, and it says this journal will change your life. We write goals, we write aspirations, we write what we want to do in our future.
Got
And
it
you
right
guys
here.
can check that out on Amazon. We don't make a ton of money off of it. I think we make $5 a book, but
Yeah.
it's super cheap on there. You just type in "do
Do
the
the
work"
work.
foods on
Mhm.
Amazon, and it'll come right up. But as you begin to write down what you're grateful for, what your plans are that are good for the day. People
Yeah.
get in journals, obviously, and this is where journaling can actually be toxic. And this is a kind of a side note. A lot of people get in there. I never feel like I'm going to get better. Like
Yeah.
this is
That's the
bad.
journal.
Let me log my symptoms for the day. Let me put all, and you go back and you look at it and you're like, wow, that's stress. But when I go in there, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for my friendship.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the relationships that I have. I'm grateful that I'm breathing. I'm grateful that I was able to take a walk. I'm grateful for the small
Yeah.
things. And you begin to do that morning, night, morning, night, morning, night. And then you're beginning to write your plans for the day. All right. So I might have all these symptoms that are causing me stress and all these relationships, but I'm going to do things anyway and distract my mind from it. Watch what changes in like 60 to 90 days. You're going to
Mhm.
see a vast change in your life, guys.
Yeah.
But and it's not like we tell you guys that if you do this for 6 months, you're no longer going to stress about stuff. No, that's not it. Stress is always going to be something in modern society that is a clear and ever present danger in your life. Again, I say it, it's how you respond to these stressors. It's how you respond to your health issues. It's how you respond to your relationship and money and all the other things that is ultimately going to dictate what the rest of your life looks like. I'm going to say this point and I'm going to kick it back over to Joe.
Yeah. Yeah.
All Lyme disease, all fibromyalgia, all that other things aside, and I said this in a video a couple days ago. Back in the day, before the big pharmaceutical industries took over and completely just destroyed modern healthcare, and
Yeah.
you go to see a cardiologist and they're throwing blood pressure medications at you, and just all these different things for your cholesterol, and all
Yeah.
these things that can be solved by your body and diet and alleviating stress. Before all that happened, you go into your doctor and what's your stress look like? Why is your blood pressure
Yeah.
high? Your blood pressure is high because of your
Yes.
lifestyle choices
Yeah.
and because of stress. When you begin to let go of those things, blood pressure goes down. Guess what? If you have high blood pressure and you were to sit here and do 5 minutes of deep breathing, your blood pressure is going to go. You
It's
still
not
might
gonna
have
go.
high blood pressure, but
Yeah.
it's going to drop. And that is you're alleviating stress. You're letting go of stress. So good cardiologists will ask you, what's your diet look like? And what does stress in your life look like? So if a cardiologist is asking this, why isn't your Lyme literate physician asking this? Why isn't your
Yeah.
chronic illness doctor asking this?
Yeah.
All these different specialists. So you have to find ways to not alleviate, but accept the stress in your life,
Manage it
find
better.
ways to get out of it. Otherwise, guys, you're going to be chronically sick the rest of your life, and it's
Yeah.
it's a big part of the reason that you are chronically sick now, and
Yeah.
you need to digest that.
Yeah,
So
exactly. We all do. I mean, and it's something that both Josh and I had to digest ourselves. Like, man, where
absolutely.
there's something that I talked about, and I wrote a book many years ago. And when I was trying to heal, like there was a point where I was just like, man, where am I keeping myself stuck and sick? And I had the realization that like my focus, my thoughts, my worries, my fears and phobias were all contributing to the stress and keeping me stuck in that loop. And all of that is it's all stress. If you're focusing on your symptoms and how bad you feel, that's stress. If you're focusing on your illness and the new diagnosis, that's stress. If you're focusing on all that could go wrong or that has gone wrong, that's stress. This
Yeah.
is where there's all of the mind body healing work is key, and there's all these programs out there and all that sort of stuff, but they don't talk about the real issues, which are things like stress. And this is why we do when we make these changes. So um, Josh mentioned some things there that have really helped him and that we talk about and we practice and we also teach, that are some solutions. And I think it's important we dive into that for you guys that are watching, and then we'll probably kind of wrap it up after that. Is that there are things that we can do. We talked about change, make plans to change or accept, but within that, now, there are a lot of things that we can do to get back into the present moment and to calm and regulate the nervous system to get out of those, stress loops that prolong and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Josh, you mentioned, gratitude, being present, and even heart brain coherence. I want to kind of talk about some of these things. So, one of the best things is honestly being present, getting out of the future and the past, becoming present, grounding yourself in the present through breathing practices, slow deep breathing practices that will calm stress and alleviate stress. If you can just simply do that every day, multiple times a day, come back to the present moment, slow deep breath. The other thing is, and he talked about it, we do gratitude multiple times a day, through writing in our journal. But one of our favorite types of meditation, recently actually, is doing the heart brain coherence meditation. And it kind of blends both of what I just talked about. It's getting present and practicing gratitude and breath all at the same time while doing a guided meditation. We have some in our guide, that we have people go through and do each and every day, and things that we do. And I notice whenever I'm in a state of stress, heightened stress, and I did it the other day, Josh, yesterday, when I was kind of stressed over this, financial stuff that crept up. Like, I did a heart brain coherence meditation, and just the stress levels went from here, down to here.
Sometimes they dive off, bro.
Yeah,
Sometimes
and I'm just like, all right, I'm good. That combination, like becoming present, breathing slowly, and finding gratitude for the things that you currently have, like,
yeah,
and it's not just we're making stuff up. Like, there are scientific, like, mounds of evidence on gratitude practice, on mindfulness, on presence, on the heart brain coherence meditations, which Joe Dispenza does a lot of scientific research on,
yeah,
how it calms stress, but also how it boosts your immune system, how it kind of
absolutely.
turns off the genes that cause inflammation and susceptibility to illness, and actually turn on the genes that actually boost your immune system. And they do all these studies around, I forget which markers it was, but it's like your whatever the immune system marker, before and after doing heart brain coherence meditations,
You
and
talking
like
about
people.
the Joe Dispenza study that he did?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forget exactly, but these are the things that you can really do when you're dealing with this stress. And the more you do it, you're going to handle stress better. Like, the thing
And
that
really,
we
I
say.
just wanted to
Yeah,
add to that,
yeah,
guys, for anybody that's like that's reluctant and just thinks that that's woo
yeah,
nonsense. There was clinical studies done on this stuff, like real science and real
yeah,
measurable results through EEGs and all these
yeah,
different things where they're measuring the heart and the brain during these times and how eliminating stress, guys. So
yeah.
I would encourage you guys to research the science. It's pretty astounding. That's what brought me in. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Joe, but I think
No,
that
no, no. I think it's important to really talk about that. There's tons of it. Joe Dispenza does. There's all these. They do actually, like, some like lab work as well, where they test these people's blood levels of their immune function before doing the heart brain coherence meditations, and then like a week later they do them, and it's like 40% better. Like, all of these markers go down in inflammation and all of that sort of stuff. You can look it up. I'm probably butchering the data, but I know it's significant, and the thing is if you do it, you'll actually notice it yourself. It's something that can help in the moment, but prolonged use of that when you're in those chronic states of stress, it can help alleviate that. So those are the
Absolutely.
few things that, there are other tools. We go into movement back, yoga, qigong, getting back into the gym. um, those things can help alleviate stress as well. There's so much out there, but for this video, I really want to
Right.
give you guys those practical tools so it's not so overwhelming, like you have to do all of it.
Yeah. And I
Simply
think
those things can help.
absolutely. And I think another unspoken one, dude, that we've been touching on recently is if you want to alleviate a lot of stress, get off this. Get
Mm,
off
yeah, yeah,
so much
yeah,
time. And Joe and I just had a conversation. So, we get some haters because we like to spread the truth and to be real
yeah,
and to not like sugarcoat anything. And because of that, we get some nasty messages, unfortunately, from people actually that are in the Lyme community. And I'd gotten one yesterday and it started to stress me out. And I told Joe about it. I was like, uh, um, I wanted to respond in typical, Josh fashion, and that's to just kind of clap at him. And that was stressful to me. I couldn't understand why this person had chosen to be nasty to me,
yeah.
and I chose a higher road. And I think these are the choices that we make. And what could have
Mhm.
turned into an incredibly stressful situation, I accepted what I can't change. I couldn't change this lady's heart, but I changed my response. And because of that, I physically feel better about the situation. But that just goes to this, the constant need to keep up on social media and respond to messages and texts and all that.
Quickly.
There's times that I literally just take my phone and I throw it to the side for a couple hours a day. And we've kind of been programmed now that we're on this all day, all day, all day, all day, all day, all day, all day. And I think that for a lot of people in modern society, because stress is an epidemic now for
Mhm.
us, where it wasn't, 100 years ago, a lot of it can be tied to this. So if you find yourself being overwhelmed all the time, try to take some time off this and take a walk, go out in nature. These are
Yeah,
all tools that we talk about a lot. Joe goes, I don't have a park to do it anymore and I'm going to find one, but Joe goes to his park every day. He
yeah.
lays in it.
All
It
nature.
almost sounds like storybook level. He takes his hammock to a park in downtown St. Pete. He hangs it up and he literally talks to dolphins all day. Like they
Yeah,
come along the seawall and say what's up to him. But that's, if you're dealing with stress, it's going to stay bad if you choose to stay on the couch in the bed. And one of the things we encourage, even when you're chronically sick, we know that it can be very difficult to get out of the house and to begin to do things, that it's very
mhm.
scary, that it's daunting, especially for people that have agoraphobia and all these fears and all that. And that's
Yeah,
stress, 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 stress. When we begin to get out of our house and begin to get a little bit physical, like you can take small walks as long as your doctor's clear it. The POTS isn't going to kill you. Like these are all things that we've dealt with on a great, great
yeah,
level. But in order to heal, in order to help alleviate some of the stress, walking's great, meditating's great, praying and diving into faith is great. Having meaningful relationships that help you heal are great. And then, finding hobbies that distract your
mhm.
mind away from it. Because if we're constantly thinking about our illness and what's wrong, and Joe, if we sat and we worried about money problems all day, bro, we'd probably completely relapse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
It's crazy because we replace these with good ideas when we begin to meditate and we focus on being present, and then we think about what it is we actually want to do in the future. And there's a difference. When we're fearful of the future, we already are basically predicting what's going to happen in the
yeah.
future. We're telling our bodies what to expect. But when we sit down, when we meditate, when we pray, when we do all these things and talk about the future in a light where things can shift, things can be better, we're actually making plans, we feel like we have a destiny, then life gets a lot better. And whereas before we would stress about the future and how bad it's going to look and what you're going to do, I'll give an example. For instance, for me today, I was supposed to train and I had basketball practice, and I'm like, dude, remember my tongue was in the electric socket earlier on this morning. How am I going to do this? But instead of that, I sat down, I laid down, I prayed. I was like, yo, let everything be good. And then I began to visualize like actually going through and it turning out all right. So
Yeah,
instead of creating the stressful thoughts in my mind, like I'm going to get in the car, I'm going to be stressed, I'm going to have anxiety, I'm not going to
yeah,
feel
yeah,
well. Like I'm going to get there, like I'm going to be outside, I'm not going to be any near my safe zones, and instead shifting from that thinking to a safer mode of thinking and bringing peace and lowering the stress, my
yeah.
body feels better. And if you could have seen and listened to Joe and I's conversation this morning, and we might not physically be feeling great now, and I know that's the part of invisible illness. We can look great, but mentally there's been a shift for us, and that's why
Yeah.
we decided to kind of get on here and to be honest and authentic with you guys about our journey and how we help alleviate this and how much progress we have made by eliminating stress, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the one of the biggest important things, we started this video kind of saying, it's not Lyme, it's not Epstein-Barr, it's not chronic fatigue syndrome, it's not fibromyalgia. A lot of it is stress and how you handle stress, guys. And if you're constantly focused on I have Lyme, I have this, I have that, you don't understand. It's like we do understand. First of all, second of all, it's for a lot of us just alleviating stress in that way is going to help all of those symptoms and things calm down. Maybe not immediately, but if you
Mhm.
practice a lot of these things consistently, those stress levels come down, the body returns back to homeostasis, you start to feel better. It's not a perfect exact science. There are ups and downs through it, but this is what I look at now. I don't look at like, oh, I have Lyme. I look at how's my stress? What are my lifestyle like right now? Can I change some things to get out of stress? Can I accept some things? What can I do to help bring my body back into balance? And that's the
Yeah.
most important things, guys. Um,
I think too, Joe. I want to really quick
yeah,
compare the symptoms of Lyme and chronic illness to the symptoms of stress.
yeah,
I
exactly.
think
Yeah,
this would be really important for kind of the people watching. So it's not to say that we don't have an infection in our body,
yeah,
but realizing that the stress that you're going through can absolutely
yeah,
make things worse. But here you go: headaches and migraines, muscle tension, pain, fatigue, low energy, digestive issues, chest pain, rapid heart rate, irregular heartbeats, sleep disturbances, frequent colds and infection, weakened immune system, jaw issues, feeling overwhelmed and anxious, irritability, restlessness, mood swings, low self esteem, feeling of losing
sounds
control,
like mine.
derealization, depersonalization, changes in appetite, weight gain, weight loss, nervous behavior, social withdrawal, racing thoughts, terrible memory, inability to focus, negative thinking, pain and inflammation in the body. Dude, that pretty much sounds like a large checklist
Yep,
for Lyme, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, long COVID.
yep.
Guys, so
I
what
was,
what
yeah,
we can do is before, and obviously if you're seeing a doctor, go to them, but realize Joe made a great post last night that said you are the medicine. And I used to like get angry at statements like that, but it really is. If you're going to the doctor and expecting him to fix your stress response or to fix your nervous system, you're going to be waiting a long time. You're
yeah,
just another patient to him. I don't care, even if you pay the extra money for those 1 hour sessions, I promise you at the end of the day, he is not thinking about your health journey. One of the biggest things I said, and we say it in class, but I don't say it here, and you guys need to hit, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to eliminate the stress from your lives. And until you begin to do that and to really use these tools to begin to accept and change, you're going to stay sick. And you might think, oh, well, you don't know. It is absolutely my Lyme, my long COVID, my fibromyalgia, my chronic fatigue, CFS, all this stuff that's keeping me sick. No, it's part of the reason, but your stress is what's making it worse. And then you have all these other symptoms from the stress, and you can't differentiate between the two. You might think it's heavy metals, you might think it's
yeah.
mold, it
Don't go
might,
down the rabbit holes. Yeah,
yeah, it'll send you down. And I understand mold illness, and I've definitely been a part of that. But if you don't think that stress exacerbates that by a massive amount, you're sadly
mhm,
mistaken. It is absolutely impossible to heal in a stressed state.
yep,
And what we want to let you guys know in closing is that it's very, very difficult to go through alone, to
yep,
constantly wake up and encourage yourself to, eliminate the stress. And we have a ton of tools and a lot of different things that we use to help people change their habits, rituals, routines, heart brain coherence, nervous system regulation, and all science-based stuff that we do in a community setting, at a very, very, very affordable price because we know that people are struggling. So if you find that that's you and you find that you're struggling, and you're looking for that community event or community type environment, and you're looking to heal and you want a safe place to heal where it's basically like a family,
yep,
we have our mind body boot camp, which has been amazing for helping people alleviate that stress, get their lives back, and begin to heal. If you'd like more information on that, you can obviously comment on the video, but you're also welcome to send us an email. It's thehealingdudes@gmail. And you can always check us out on Instagram. That's where the majority of our content is, at the Healing Dudes.
Or
Joe?
thehealingdudes.com, also our
Yeah,
website.
obviously our website. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how I could
yeah,
forget that.
that's the way we'll end it, guys.
Yeah.
Mind your stress. Mind your stress. It'll go a long way in your healing journey.
Yeah. And just as you guys navigate through the day, think about what kind of shifts you can make in your life. And you can start today. And I would encourage you to start today. If you wait till tomorrow, you're probably not going to do anything. So maybe grab a piece of paper, write down some of your major stressors in your life, and write down how you can change your response to those, and write down what you can accept, what you can change, and the knowledge and courage to know the difference. You guys have a great day.